So in the first reading from Ecclesiastes, we heard the word vanity a lot. So vanity, the actual Hebrew word is hebel, which is also what gave Abel his name, meaning breath, but it means transient and impermanence. So we, of course, when we hear vanity, think something quite different from that. But when you think about this passage, think of it in that way. So regarding work, work is discussed a lot in that phrase. And unfortunately, it actually continues beyond that with a somewhat more positive spin on work as well, which is kind of nice for someone who really values work. But regarding work, the writer teacher makes clear that there's no virtue in stressful, exploitative work for its own sake. That's not the point of work. Good work should not be about trying to accumulate wealth, trying to accumulate power, trying to accumulate prestige. That is not what good work is. And we don't hear it today, but a few lines down, teacher says that fulfilling work supports a simple life of measured pleasures. So pleasures are not denied one. Measured pleasures are not denied one. So work can be a good thing. And I think we need to remember that. Work can be a good thing. So we have then our Luke gospel, where there's discussions about greed. The young man wants more to the disadvantage of his brother. There were rules at that time about what happens with inheritance. The rules were clear. Everyone knew what they were. So if someone is going to try to get someone to change that, it's because they want more than it is allotted to them. So this was about trying to take something away from probably an older brother, but it wasn't about not getting what was kind of due him under the law, but trying to get more. So there was definitely greed in that. And that's clear from Jesus' response when he talks about this farmer who amasses great amounts of some grain or whatever it is, to the and he holds it. He holds the grain to the disadvantage of his neighbors. It is very hard today not to be conscious of the effects of grain not being distributed because of what's going on in the Ukraine. We all hear about how much the cost of rising food is related to the fact that that grain, which I don't think is being hoarded, but that is not being distributed, and the effect that that is having on third world countries and on the world at large. So hoarding has that effect. It is about not sharing. And Jesus ends by saying that the wise person is rich towards God. Rich towards God. And that means generous to others in need. Doesn't mean you're saying extra prayers up to God. It's about how you live your life. It's about being generous to others and trusting that God will provide for your needs. Greed is the moral antithesis of generosity. It destroys us, and generosity blesses us. Jesus talks about money a lot. And I think he does that because remember, Jesus was also human. Jesus was also tempted. We hear every first Sunday of Lent about Jesus' temptation in the desert. So Jesus, and I think that shows Jesus' human side. It's really easy for us to dismiss that. We think of Jesus as the person who never sinned. But I think it's important for us not to think of him as the person who was never tempted. He knew about the temptations that assail humans, because he was human as well. As I'm fond of saying, Jesus was not an idiot.
Amen.
My deacon friends love that. Jesus understood that we have choices. We have choices every day. We have choices in how we work. We have choices in how we spend. We have choices in how we share. We have choices in how we invest. And we have choices in how we leave our estates. These are choices that are available to us every day. And they're not things that we just make a decision about once and then we're done. They are choices that face us every day. And that's one of the reasons I think that we need to keep coming back here, to reminding ourselves about those choices and about what God is calling us to, how God is calling us to respond to them. We can be greedy. We can be focused on our egos to the disadvantage of others. Or we can be generous and be focused on the advantage of others. When I was an employee benefits lawyer early in my legal career, and that was in the 80s, a long time ago, I worked in the employee benefits area. And I remember reading research that shows that employees who get good benefits, who get pensions, who get medical benefits, who get on-site childcare, who get, the myriad of other kinds of benefits that there are tax advantages to provide, that those employees are more productive and there's less turnover. And that benefits in the long term their employees. It benefits in the long term their employees. And yet, in those 38 years since I started practicing law, we have seen, except for the really huge corporations, a real dive in what employers seek to provide their employees. Because in the short term, you get greater profit by not providing them, because there is a cost to them. Even though there are some tax advantages to doing it that way, there's still a cost to them. And so we're seeing that less. When we look at this fragile earth, our island home, individually and by corporations, we pollute. We pollute the air, we pollute the water, we pollute the land, we pollute the oceans. We kill people. We kill species. We kill habitats. Because in the short term, there are greater profits in the short term. So what about being right with God? What about being generous to others? What about a simple life with measured pleasures? What about the long